Welcome to the Busy Latter-day Saint, where righteous desires and living life come together. Here, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints discuss their challenges and successes in studying the Scriptures, and where listeners come to learn more about studying the Scriptures. I'm your host, Richard Bernard. The music for this program is by Marvin Goldstein and used with his permission. If you've enjoyed this podcast, I encourage you to comment on this episode or the podcast in general. I also encourage you to contact me with topics you would like me to discuss. To leave a comment or share a topic, click on the link in the show notes. I encourage you to subscribe to this podcast to be informed when a new episode has been posted, and invite you to share with others how you have benefited from this podcast. If you enjoy this podcast and have benefited from it, I encourage you to start donating a few dollars to the General Missionary Fund. This podcast has been running since June of 2020, now ending its second year. This is the 73rd episode, and it's time to celebrate. And why? Based on the statistics, this podcast is a success. For example, 56% of podcasts have had 10 episodes or fewer. It's estimated that less than 20% of podcasts that launch in a given year will make it to the following year. And lastly, of the 2 million titles reflected on the Apple Podcast, 26% have produced just a single episode. I think the reason for the poor numbers is a person gets excited to talk about a subject that's important to them, only to discover how much time it takes to record the podcast and to edit it. And probably the biggest obstacle is finding new content. This podcast is a success because of you. And because of you, the numbers continue to increase despite having me to cut down the number of podcasts I produce. Currently, I am averaging about once a month. But starting today, this podcast will be adding a new feature. I will continue having interviews, but in between the interviews, I will be talking about studying the Scriptures and using the Gospel Library. These episodes will be much, much shorter. Some will be instructive, while others will be informative, with the hope it will cause you to think about how to study the Scriptures. The first 3 episodes will cover the difference between reading and studying, the importance of notes, and why tags are vital in studying the Scriptures. In later episodes, I will discuss different studying techniques, share content from various books by LDS authors on studying the Scriptures, and share tips and tricks in using the Gospel Library. I'm excited to start this new feature, and I hope you find it uplifting, informative, and inspiring.